Well, it is Bradford Ferguson again, and Bradford, we have had a week. Man, have we had a week. And it's only Thursday. There's still so much time left for all kinds of things to happen. One of the things that you don't, of course, do, but I'm still going to ask you anyway, is Tesla has been up and down and all around during that week, kind of with the market. We'll talk about the market a little later, but just Tesla in general. I'm speculating, others may be speculating, that we take another run at the 265 before the earnings call. Are you in that camp, or do you care, or do you have an opinion?
I wouldn't be surprised. I would only be a 6% move or so.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised by that. Yeah, I tweeted Monday morning that I said beware the Monday morning FOMO peak, and that's a little bit of what we got on Monday morning.
Yeah.
We might have had the Trump rally. The stock was up, kind of running a bit, and people piled in the morning. And that was about it for this week. Stock came back a bit today, right?
Ended up in the green, believe it or not, by
Okay.
a buck, and then in the little more in the green in the after hours. So surprising that it did pop back at the end. I mean, it was up quite nicely this morning,
Oh,
like 8 or 9, I think $8, and then came all the way back to barely under, and then managed to grab 80 cents or something at the end.
yeah.
So if people are FOMOing about the earnings report, what do you have you got a number in mind for next Tuesday? Are you on the two things that people usually are asking, which are the margins and the final bottom number? Anything in your head and what you're hoping for or thinking is going to be?
I was just talking with Matt Smith, and his workup is like around like 58, 59 cents
Oh,
in
okay.
earnings, which would be a bit of a rebound from last quarter. Certainly Megapack's a bright spot, and they'll have more earnings because of that.
Mm-hmm.
We're a little unsure about the auto business.
Mm-hmm.
We're not sure how Tesla's going to account for the financing deals they gave.
Right.
So
Yeah.
when they extend those really low rates to borrowers, they likely have to pay the banks um, to buy down that interest rate,
Right.
and it's a question of how they account for it.
Right.
The total cost of like having Model Y financing at 1% might be something on the order of $6,000.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a way, it might have been like a little bit of a price cut versus Q1, even though they did increase Model Y price around April 1st. And they had great sell through of the Model Y and other cars this quarter, where they sold 33,000 more cars than they produced.
Right.
So, their earnings will be helped by that, where they sold so many more cars than they did in Q1.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit of a give and a take there.
Okay. All right. And so these 57, 58 cents, is he thinking, is that after the one-time hit for the folks that were laid off, or has he got another, 15 cents for that? One way, which way is he going on that, or do you remember?
We didn't get into that,
Okay.
so you know, it it's true it did end kind of like at the end of June for some Tesla employees.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Tesla's going to be starting to save money after this quarter, as
Right.
far as with their layoffs. They did hire people back, but they will be saving some money from that. It'll be called a one-time item,
Right.
but if they do it every year, it's not really a true one-time item.
Now, on the margins, my understanding of the mechanics of that reduction in the interest rates. It could be applied to margins, but rarely would be. It might be looked at as promotional, might go over on the advertising kind of promotional side, become an overhead item if it is a buy down. I could imagine it going either way, but I'm thinking it would be more likely promotional. I mean, either way, it's the same. The bottom line, it's identical, but it might be in a different way.
There's a potential for it to positively surprise in that I think we estimated that, potentially they're doing over 100,000 Model Ys in a quarter, and depending on how Tesla expenses it, it could be a $6,000 upfront cost, or potentially it could be amortized over the life of the loan, in which case it only would cost Tesla on the accounting $300 every quarter, so like $100 a month. So that would be a really big swing on like over 100,000 units. So we're curious to see how that's accounted for. We're guessing there's no big change in how Tesla accounts for financing. Typically, when you start accounting for something, you keep doing it that way through the life of the company. You don't suddenly switch how you do it. And generally, Tesla tends to be more conservative on accounting. I know the Tesla Q bears, wouldn't believe that, but they
are. Yeah.
They've shown to be very conservative on warranty accounting, for example, and Larry's, done great work on showing us that. So we wouldn't think that suddenly Tesla would be more aggressive on accounting, even though it's reasonable. It may be reasonable to account for that interest buy down in a different way.
And without getting too deep in the woods, it's also possible that they're self-financing these loans. So create an entirely different situation where the cost would be whatever they wanted it to be at this point. I mean, not within accounting rules, but they could make it, maybe the equivalent of what they are average earning on their investments or something like that. Or they could wait until they bundle it and sell it off. I think there's a whole bunch of different ways that they could apply it if they're self-financing. So, and it could be some of each. They could be self-financing in the United States and using lenders in China, for instance. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on all that. But even more interesting that if we want to stay in bookkeeping, what's going to happen with energy. So we had obviously a really great month for energy. I think it was, who was it? Somebody I was talking to, one of the guys that are on the show suggested, we could see lumpiness in those shipments, to not get in love with that 9.4 megawatt hours, because maybe that was just a really good month in terms of getting a lot out the door. And next month it might drop back down to 6, even though the production is the same, the actual shipments might drop down to 6 or 7 or whatever. But in any case, I hopefully learn more about the bookkeeping. Do you think?
I don't think we'll necessarily learn more about like how they defer the revenue and revenue recognition. That is a risk that, you look at the 9.4 gigawatt hours, and the capacity is allegedly 10 gigawatt hours at Megafactory Lathrop. So people are just kind of assuming they're going to do 10 every quarter for a long time, for here on out, until they increase capacity. So maybe we're anchoring to that 9.4 number because that's close to capacity. And so there is some potential that it could drop the next quarter for sure. So that might be another reason why Wall Street may not give them credit for Tesla Energy. Like, they need more excuses to not give them credit, but I could see that happening.
Yeah. Okay. And then of course we got the news also, just actually a confirmation.
But like we estimate the gross profit at Tesla Megapacks gonna more than double, even though
Right.
You know, they can't recognize all the revenue when Tesla says it's deployed.
Right, right, right. And then, of course, we had the confirmation today that they're still on track to open Megafactory Shanghai in the first quarter. So again, if any of these Wall Street folks start to figure in energy, they would need to start figuring in actual, I would think they need to start figuring in actual factories under construction and that potential in their spreadsheets for next year or the following year.
Yep. Jordan Geesedy did a video where he wondered aloud, like, how many megapack factories might Tesla have?
Right.
And I think he was at like a bare minimum. This is just longer term, like between like 5 and 13 or something like that.
Right.
Recommend people check out that video. That I thought that was interesting.
I thought it was interesting too. I think I hope he's wrong by about a half. Because Elon did say he was shooting for 1 terawatt, and 1 terawatt would take easily 25 factories, at least if they're all at 40 gigawatt hours to get to that 1 terawatt. And yeah, I think you and I have talked about before how easy it would be, I think, to just expand Lathrop as opposed to, and I mean, it's perfectly set up with a river right there. So they can barge them out and whatnot. So there could be some real advantages to just moving more metal out of Lathrop than even opening another one in the United States.
Yeah. So what Randy's talking about is there's the port of Stockton that is a little north and west of Lathrop, where when they ship out the megapacks via semi truck and those big trailers, they could take them to the port of Stockton. They can put it on rail, or they can put it on a barge that goes to the port of Oakland and send it out from there, whether it goes to Australia or or elsewhere.
Yeah, so there's a real advantage in terms of freight doing that. Okay, so in addition to earnings coming in next Thursday, we've got earnings questions. We have the earnings call. And so I didn't know if there was anything in particular that were high on your list of things you're hoping to hear about next week. I think I think the top of my list is 4680s. But some of the things that are on the list so far.
I'll tell you the biggest one for us is
yeah.
We'd love if Tesla in their earnings report announced the number of FSD subscriptions.
Oh,
that number could be as large as like 200,000, according to some surveys that we've seen. And I just sent out a poll on X. I know it's not scientific.
Yeah.
But I pulled to see. I asked people this year, if you own a Tesla, did you subscribe to Tesla? Did you subscribe to FSD, purchase FSD outright, or neither? And of the 70% who say they own a Tesla, 21% said they subscribe to FSD.
Wow.
I think my readers are more on the US side. This is really shocking, though. I'm not sure if I believe this. 19% of the 70% said they purchased FSD outright, and 30% said neither. So maybe most people are saying, well, I purchased it before, so maybe that's kind of where that 19% is. But if essentially 30% subscribe to FSD, I think the crowd on X is more hardcore Tesla owner, where there's a lot of casual Tesla owners out there who don't even know that you can subscribe to FSD. I know that sounds ridiculous, but there are Tesla owners out there who don't know. So we're curious what that number is, because the fleet of Teslas in the US is over 2 million. And if 10% subscribe to FSD, that would be a really big deal.
Number. Yeah, that'd be a big number. Yeah, so I'm very interested to know about 4680. They've, of course, we've heard some news today, last couple of days, that the dry cathode battery is this close, apparently, to being signed off on, according to some reporting. Good reporting, though, people that we do tend to respect. And that if it's signed off by September, that we could be looking at a pretty significant ramp by the end of the year. Did you see anything I didn't see on that that might give us any more color on that?
Yeah, what the issue was is when they did both the dry electrode and the dry cathode, that they were having some issue where the battery would kind of collapse on itself, or I don't know. I feel like it was just like kind of binding up in the center, which would make it where the battery wouldn't really function. And Tesla needed to change the equipment. I think they tried to alter the current equipment they had, but they figured out that they just needed to order new equipment. So hopefully this gives them over like a final hurdle on doing both dry cathode and electrode for 4680, and that they're able to move to high volume production soon. So tell me there's a chance.
Yeah, it'd be nice, especially because it just takes up such a much smaller footprint. So it would seem to be something that maybe we could even see going over to Shanghai fairly soon, which is, a more crowded environment, but they might be able to find enough space and or put it in a separate facility because it's just not much footprint on that. So other questions that people are asking, they're asking, when is the robotaxi event going to be? I don't think that'll be announced unless it's just, I don't think, if it's not announced as part of the earnings call in the beginning, I mean, as just a part of their normal announcement, then asking the question isn't going to change anything. So I think that's one of the worst questions I've ever seen, because I don't think the question is going to be necessary or useful. When does Tesla expect the first robotaxi ride is another question that people are voting on in a favorable way. That's a good one, but do you think there's any chance in the world Elon would give that number or that answer?
I don't see why he would before the robotaxi event.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Another question is updated timeline for Giga Mexico. I would certainly love to hear about an updated timeline for Giga Mexico. Brian White is down there right now. He says no evidence of even a single shovelful being turned over down there yet. Do you think they'll answer that question?
Yeah, so it may be answered in the negative. Tesla, if they start producing the robotaxi in Giga Texas, I'm not sure why they would necessarily need to start Giga Mexico right away. They would need some time to ramp the robotaxi and kind of learn about what all they need to do with the hardware. And we heard from Elon this week that they're gonna do some work on the front of the robotaxi, and I think like hope to add a little something more to the event, something like that. So it sounded like some kind of hardware issue where they're changing the design a little bit or some hardware piece. I don't think they, with a new, if they're using new way of making it, I don't think they would scale the Giga Mexico plant, or I think it makes sense for them to start building it and have the shell. I don't know. We know Elon is anxious about a potential recession, and we continue to get more signs that the economy could be weak in the future. So I think like Tesla's gonna just overall just keep that on hold for now.
Well, speaking of recessions and all that kind of stuff, on the kind of general economic front. I have been calling it.
Could I
Very,
break
yeah,
before we get into that? Could I break something for Tesla?
absolutely.
There's been some influencers talking about this Cox Automotive data saying that Tesla only made 4,000 Cybertrucks in May.
Oh,
And is still like under the production of the Ford F-150 Lightning.
right.
And I have some data. I've tweeted about this where the first recall that happened, on the recall, they talked about all the Teslas needing to be recalled to fix the pedal, right?
Right.
So they needed to put the rivet in and attach the pedal.
Right.
But then on the next recall, I think it was more software related. It was a portion of Cybertrucks. So they were taking that number and thinking that it was all the Cybertrucks.
Right. Right.
And also I found a high VIN, a high Cybertruck VIN of a Cybertruck that was stickered around June 11th, where the VIN of that Cybertruck was 17,500.
Oh, okay.
So, Tesla, they don't always make the VINs in order.
Right.
So they probably backfilled. But even if they made 17,000 through the end of June, and the one I saw was June 11th, so that's being a little conservative, that would mean they made a lot more Cybertrucks than they're getting credit for.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay. All right. Well, that's useful. Maybe that would be, of course, one of the things I'd love to hear. And many people, I think, would like to separate out the semi trucks from the S and X so that we have some kind of more information about that ramp. I joked about it the other day. We have the largest retail shareholder group in the world, maybe ever, far as stock. And many of those stockholders really enjoy the fun of being owners and being involved like you and me. And so maybe the board and Elon would take that into consideration in terms of providing more and more information that they don't think is actually competitive. It's kind of like your baseball team. You want all the fans to have all the stats, because that's a lot of the fun, is following your favorite players, and knowing what bat they use, or what glove, etc. So I think it would just be fun, to the extent that it's possible. Maybe they could really give us a lot of additional statistics over time to just to make it more fun.
Yeah, they definitely could do that. Though I would say they're one of the most transparent companies already.
Right, that's true.
So it's true they don't get into the same model level of detail of other automakers, but there's a whole heck of a lot of reporting they do in general that other companies don't give us. Yeah, I think it'd be nice if we got that kind of data and didn't have to try and piece it together through me going to the Tesla Center and taking a picture of a VIN sticker or whatever.
So I started talking about this a couple of weeks ago. I said, look, it's time for a pullback in the stock market. The equities have got to have a cooling off period here. We got to have 5, 10, maybe even 20% fallback. And then all of a sudden last week, we started getting this, what people thought was a rotation. And as much as I thought that we would have a rotation, and I started talking about that 6 months ago, I was hard pressed to call this a rotation, even though the Russell was getting a little benefit, and the Dow was getting some benefit. It looked like it might be a rotation, but I said, it's just a little too early to tell yet. We need to wait. As of today, it's not looking like a rotation. It's looking way more like that 5% pullback. What do you think?
So if you look under the hood, I follow an account called Microcap Club Forums, maybe, or Microcap Club. And what they look at is small cap companies that are profitable versus those that aren't.
Mm,
And those are getting more love than the ones that aren't in general.
yes, of course.
So I think there has been a bit of a rotation. But I- I'd say, you know, maybe we're somewhat done for now. It seems like things have kind of settled in. So that's just my take on it, but I'm curious to see what happens.
Okay. So I'm still calling for another 5. I think the Magnificent Seven now, or 6 rather, Magnificent Six is either down 5 or more across the board, and some of them are down 10 or more. So I think the
Percent, yeah.
10%. I think the Magnificent Six could see some additional pullback, but then in general, I think the S&P and the Nasdaq, probably the Dow also, unless there is more of this rotation. I just think we'll see probably a 10%. I don't think we need a 20% pullback, but I just feel like it was just way out over its skis. And folks are just going to at some point, well, and the VIX went up to 14.5. Sitting down around 12, then even down to 11, and then all of a sudden here it went up to 14.5. That was a pretty good clue that maybe the fear was in.
Yeah, the main thing that happened in my mind was the expectations that the Fed's going to start cutting in September went really high and are at like something like 94% chance of a cut.
Yes.
So then the market started thinking, okay, well, what companies benefit the most from that? So they look at small cap.
Right.
You know, also they look at growth, but because the Magnificent Six had done so well,
right,
for like the last 6 quarters, those have suffered a bit. So, you know, people had to sell something. And so we're seeing some buying in small cap. Small cap may have been shorted quite a bit by hedge funds. So they might be doing some short covering as well.
Yeah, okay. And last on my list, because I know you'd like to hurry off and see the president speak tonight. I'm sorry, the past president speak tonight. In the matter of the Trump surviving his assassination and moving on to his speech tonight, some people are saying that there's a lot of advantage to Tesla. Some of the bears are saying, oh no, this will be horrible for Tesla if Trump's the victor, because he'll get rid of, he's not a fan of electric vehicles, or he is certainly going to eliminate the IRA. What do you think about all that stuff?
Yeah, so the IRA, I think, is a mixed bag for Tesla. Where it especially hurts Tesla is it supremely elevates hybrids, where hybrids have a much smaller battery than most Teslas have. They might have a 10 kilowatt hour battery, where the Model Y might have an 80 kilowatt hour battery. But both vehicles get the same $7,500 tax credit from the Inflation Reduction Act.
Right.
So this is more supported the makers of hybrids, so like GM, Ford, Toyota, Honda, others. So if Trump and or like a red wave from the election happened and the Inflation Reduction Act got repealed, that part of it being repealed would be a good thing for Tesla.
Yeah.
Now, on the negative side, Tesla is probably hoping to make a lot of money off the battery manufacturing tax credits,
right,
where they can get $35 per kilowatt hour making the batteries, and an additional $10 per kilowatt hour of assembling the batteries into modules.
right.
So that's $45, which is pretty substantial when we see, you know, nickel battery prices down under $100 a kilowatt hour.
Way
And
under.
we're seeing Chinese LFP batteries at like $40 a kilowatt
Right.
hour. Um, so it would kind of hurt Tesla's ability to get those battery credits, but it should help solve some of the confusion around full battery electric vehicles and hybrids, because
Right.
there is a lot of confusion in the minds of consumers. I know it may sound ridiculous to people who really understand Teslas and own a Tesla, but there's a lot of people I've talked to who are confused about the difference
Absolutely
and
right.
just end up buying a hybrid.
Even reporters, even people who are reporting on Tesla will commonly have trouble really truly being able to report numbers and things, lumping them all together, either intentionally or
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
And some of this was on purpose from the German automakers, from Toyota, calling the hybrids electrified.
Right. Yes. Yes.
So, people can confuse the term electric vehicle or full battery electric vehicle with an electrified hybrid.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Well, okay. Any last things? We'll do the what do you call it? We'll look at the market statistics after you're off. Is there any last thing that you are passionate about tonight before we let you go?
Nope. I think Tesla's on the right path generally. They've added the Model 3 long range rear wheel drive with quite a bit of range, and has the second best range of all Teslas except for like some Model S or something like that. That's a really nice vehicle that they have. Also, they were offering the range boost where, for only an extra $1,000, depending on the battery pack, you could add 30 miles of range, or if you had a different battery pack, you could add 50 miles of range for $1,600. That's a really big difference. So you see on the margin, like Tesla's continuing to improve their product and make them better.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty exciting time. I'm pretty jazzed right now. I feel a lot of energy. Other people have been talking about just kind of a gut sense of like some extreme energy in terms of where we're headed right now. That is not investment advice, but things are seemingly headed in a pretty positive way. All
Yeah.
right, then, Bradford, thank you as always for coming on Thursday. And
Absolutely.
we'll look forward to talking to you after earnings. That should be fun.
All right. Stick with Randy. Bye for now.
All right. See you later. All right. So where are the markets right now? What's happening out there? Well, okay, we'll start by going over what happened today. So we've got Tesla, which is up 73 cents, as I mentioned earlier on the day, but the Dow Jones pretty much gave back what it had grabbed off the other day. So it's down 533. And overall, now the Dow is down, I think it's about 3% from its all-time high, maybe 3.5% from its all-time high. NASDAQ down 125.70 today. That is now down almost 5%, closing in on 5% from its all-time high. S&P down 43.68. I didn't check on that one to see where it compares to the all-time high. You've got almost all the magnificent. Meta was actually up. NVIDIA was up a little. Meta was up strongly, but that was recovering from some pretty bad days. I kind of checked just really quick a little while ago. Many members of the Magnificent Six were showing some positivity in the after hours. The Tesla in the after hours is now 97 cents up, sitting at 250.20. And as I mentioned, I'm pretty sure that we will see tomorrow and Monday, maybe Tuesday, we will see another effort to close above 265. And then, as usual, what happens after the earnings call is really going to be interesting to see, because you just never know. Okay, so just for those of you who are thinking about playing it, let me just tell you what I think after watching lots and lots of these for many years. A lot of times there's a lot of FOMO, a lot of people getting into the stock prior to the meeting. And then Elon will say something weird, or things will happen that are not quite exactly as people are hoping for, and you'll see a sell-off afterwards. We had the opposite happen in the last time around, the last earnings call. We had a sell-off into the earnings, and then it was a very good earnings call, even though it was not good results, but Elon did well during the earnings call. People were appreciative of what was said, and we saw a little bit of a bump after the earnings call. So you don't know, okay? And this time, my anticipation would be that it's going to be a very good earnings call, surprisingly good earnings call. Will we see a bump? I don't know. That'll be, as you saw with NVIDIA today. At first, NVIDIA's numbers all look great. They found one little piece of it they didn't like. NVIDIA fell like 3, 4, 5%. And then all of a sudden, after the earnings call, NVIDIA was back to positive territory. I mean, NVIDIA, all of it, everything I just said was Netflix. So Netflix had good headline numbers. Then all of a sudden there was something wrong, and boom, it went down 3 or 4%. But then after their call, right back up into positive territory again. So that's, you just can't tell with these things. So be a little careful if you're playing playing it this next Tuesday. Okay, what else do we got here? We have got the bonds. Let's go over and check the bonds. Okay, the bonds in the after hours, the 10-year continues up 0.8 basis point. The 2-year up 0.3 basis point. The difference now between those two is still sitting around 27 basis points. So that's been steady now for 3 days. The 2-month is up 3.5 basis points in the after hours. I'm sorry, the pre-market. And so that's still like, again, 110 or more basis points difference. All right, let's go into the oil. We've got oil down a little bit, 82 at 82.33, down 49 in the pre-market. Brent and unchanged. So now we've got the full $3, but almost $3 exactly between the two. So that is equalizing or normalizing. Natural gas down another dollar. I mean, I'm sorry, 1.18%. It was up today. I really have felt like it's too low. And so I was expecting maybe some more continuation of the upward trend, but at least in the pre-market, that has been pulling back. Gold is down 970, so a little trim on profits there. So it's roughly $10 away from all-time high there. Silver has dropped under 30, down 0.76% at 29,99999. Anyways, $30. Call it, but it is under 30. Copper is down 0.33 at 4265, so staying down in the low end of its recent range. The Japanese yen, the dollar losing against the yen. Still nothing on intervention there. Euro is down against the dollar in the pre-market. Bitcoin down 691 for the day so far at 63,976. And the equity markets, we've got the Dow up 37 or 0.09%. S&P up 10.25 or 0.18%, and the NASDAQ up 63.50 or 0.32%. So again, rotation, not so much. The rotation is not, anyway. So I'm not thinking the rotation is holding up. I'm thinking this is a pullback, just a regular old pullback where people have got they've made a lot of money in this market, and people are going to grab some of that and let the market figure it out for a few days or a few weeks. I just suspect that's what we're going to be looking at. Now, obviously the news can change all of that, but there's earnings reports coming out and a lot of the tech company earnings coming out over the next 2 weeks. So there's plenty of news that could impact everything that I just said. All right, I am going to continue to push you guys. I mean, okay, we have a CERN Basher video from earlier today. Fantastic, absolutely amazing stuff you need to know. It wasn't getting nearly the love that I expected it should. We still have that video from yesterday that I did, which talked about the Elon Musk and Trump bromance and what that means. If you haven't looked at that one yet, I'll put both cards up because both of them are well worth your time, in my opinion. And of course, that would be my opinion. And then tomorrow we have got the regular schedule going tomorrow. And then Larry Goldberg tomorrow night. And then on Friday sometime, Herbert Ong will be on. I think that Saturday, that'll probably might be the morning show. Not 100% sure yet, but he and I'll be doing that video tomorrow, and it will be shown sometime on Saturday. So you can look forward to that. All right, I think that's it for now. Join Patreon, join Patreon, join Patreon, and it has been great talking to you.